So welcome back, everyone. My next guest has also been on with me a couple times before. I have with me Vivien Enders, and she's the founder and owner of Modern Strategy Investments. I want you to tell everybody a little bit about you, but what makes you so different, being that, first of all, you are a woman, but you do things a little differently than other people do. Go ahead.
I do. So my name, Vivien Enders. I am a financial advisor. And I've got 2 small kids. I'm a working mom, and so one of the things that I focus on with my clients is kind of where they're at today. And that's really important, right? Because you could be in the throes of motherhood, you could be just starting a family, or you could be planning to retire. And so really understanding where they're at and helping them kind of identify that is a great starting point.
I like that that's what you do. And the reason why is because a lot of people out there they would like to maybe have some financial planning but don't know what to do, think they have to have money in order to do that. And I think that that's where you're completely opposite.
Yeah, I think it's important, even if you are younger and just kind of starting out, right? Really thinking through kind of where you want to be later, but understanding where you are today is so important, right? Because when you're younger, you think, oh, well, I have all of this time. Well, time seems to fly by.
Oh, yeah.
And then you'll look back and be like, oh, it's been 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to be busy in life. Every time you turn around, there's going to be something going on. There's soccer games or work or events and things that you have to do. Just, grocery shopping even. However, their finances, a lot of times we tend to say, oh, I'll look at that later, right? Well, if you're not understanding the options that are available to you today or how they might impact you, 10 years will go by. And you'll look back and be like, oh, maybe I need to look at this now. And it creates much more of an urgency for people versus when you're younger, even if it's just going to get a free consultation from a financial advisor so you understand your benefits of your employer and your 401k and the options that are available to you.
What about people that don't have that? Like people that are solopreneurs and have been working on their own for quite some time?
Yeah, so actually small business owners is something that I work a lot with, right? And especially because small business owners are so busy with the day-to-day of their operations. And they also generally will have a goal of, oh, well, I'm going to sell the business or I'm going to give the business to my kids. And so they think that the business is the retirement plan. And so the idea behind it is understand what options are available to you, but is there tax incentives as well of you offering certain things or even you contributing to some sort of plan for yourself? How will that help you?
Yeah, and when you sit down, when you work with somebody, and think that you do something when they first call you. Obviously, you do a free consultation with them, but you start them off with something, and I want to talk a little bit about that. You've mentioned it before.
Yeah, so really, it's just a simple conversation, right? It's just getting to know you a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and for you to get to know me, to make sure that we're going to be a good fit together. Because I'm going to be asking you a lot of personal questions, and a financial plan is only as good as the information that you put into it. So if you don't trust your financial planner to give them all the information, it's not going to be accurate. And so it's really important just to have a conversation to understand who you are, right? What are your goals? What are your aspirations? What do you want?
Right.
And from there, we can kind of say, all right, let's talk through what this might look like or how I work with clients.
So when you talk about tips, okay, your top tips, what are they? What would somebody first start off with?
So first of all, I would say contribute to your 401k plan if you have one, especially if they offer a match, right? Because if they're offering a match, essentially, and you're not contributing to it, you're leaving free money on the table. And that's really important. And
why do people not? They want the money now. They don't want to take that money and give. They feel like they're giving it back to them, or they feel like they need the money. A lot of people might feel that they need that.
Yeah. So a lot of times people will be like, oh, well, I don't need a 401k plan when because, and everyone has a different reason behind why they may not want to contribute. Maybe it's because they feel like, they need that money within their budget, right? But a lot of times there's tax benefits to you for contributing to it, right?
And so pay now, pay later kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Get your tax, but why would you rather not have to pay the tax man?
Yeah, well, and I mean,
or in this case, it might be better for you to, but you have the write off for it.
So what happens, like with an employer 401k, essentially what happens is you put money into the 401k, and let's just say you make $50,000 a year and you put $5,000 into a pre-tax 401k. You're essentially going to be taxed on $45,000 of annual income. So it lowers your taxable income, right? On top of then, if your employer has the match, essentially, and let's just say that was, a dollar for dollar match, and now they're putting in $5,000, you now have $10,000 in that 401k just for putting that away. And
are employers doing that?
A lot of employers do have very robust 401k matches, and every employer is different, right? Big companies are obviously going to be able to offer a lot more than necessarily, small organizations can. But small organizations can do it as well. What
about other tip that you might have for somebody besides, contributing to your 401k?
Understand your benefits, right? So healthcare benefits, HSA benefits, and make sure that you're selecting a plan that is going to work for you and your family, right? If you have a lot of medical expenses, it's probably not a good idea to select a very high deductible plan. Right? You probably want to look at the plan that has the lower deductible. It may cost a little bit more. However, if you balance that out versus the high deductible, which one's going to be better in your scenario?
Well, let's say somebody right now is thinking, oh gosh, I have already done that, but I can change in October or what have you. Do you think it's a good idea to talk to because usually you just talk to the insurance agency, right, agent, but maybe it's a good idea to talk to someone like you first?
Yeah, so that is one of the things that I generally will do. Open enrollment usually comes around October, and so somewhere around September, I start making phone calls to people saying, hey, make sure that when you get that open enrollment packet, send me over the information within it. Let's make sure we understand what the match is. Let's make sure that we understand what your life insurance is.
I think that's great that you do that, because when you don't know, you're going in blindly, and it's really, most people, I'm sure every time somebody talks to you about what they've already done, have you said, well, we better change that for next time, or when they allow you to do it again?
So we do at times, right? Sometimes it just depends on the person and their options, right? So a lot of times they'll go in and we're just checking a box in open enrollment, right? Oh, this plan's cheaper, or this plan looks better, and you want to make sure that you're evaluating your options, because there's times, well, are your doctors included in that plan? That's huge, right? And I know I like to keep my doctors, and so that's one of the things that when I'm selecting a plan, I research, because I want to make sure that my doctors are in network versus out of network, which can also cause additional fees.
Now, with a financial planner, okay, how often should you review your plan?
So I would say anytime that you have a huge life event, right? So marriage, divorce, widow, a new child, anytime there's a job change, but also in circumstances where you might be nervous, right? Maybe the market volatility is getting to you, or maybe you're getting ready to retire. Generally, I like to meet with the clients once a year, so that way we're aware of kind of what our savings rate is and how we're doing, and are we benchmarking accordingly.
Do you do second opinions?
Absolutely.
I think it's really important when people hear this information, because, when you got to dust them off. A lot of people have them, they think they're done and one and done and that's it. It's really not like that, and I think you've given some great advice. If you are worried, have it checked out, and maybe even have a second opinion. You've been doing this for 10 years, and the phone number to call her direct is 480-656-6476. She does free consultations. Her website is modernstrategyinvestments.com. Write this number down. It's 480-656-6476. We're going to go to a break. Hang tight. We'll be back in just a minute. We're going to keep on talking because we're live in the room. I think it's really important. I like what we're doing here, and I want to, I'll tell you my idea afterwards, but I mean, I think it's really important. I hope you like what I'm doing. Yeah. For people to, when you do a second opinion, right? How does that work? Because let's say somebody feels like, well, I don't want to leave anybody that I've already have, but, how does that work?
So, sometimes it's just a matter of sitting down with someone and basically they'll get me their information, right? So I'm going to request statements. I'm going to request kind of your financial plan. I'm going to ask you about your goals. What's your target retirement age or your education goal for your kids? Whatever the goal is that we're trying to achieve, we're going to look at those things. And there are times where, hey, okay, has your financial advisor made you aware that you can increase your 401k contributions to, right now it's $23,500 or $30,000 with the catch-up. Are you aware of that? Is that something that's in your budget? Or, hey, are you aware that if you just put, $2,000 more into, your 401k, that's going to lower your tax bracket? Other things can be, sometimes I'll look at it and the financial advisor's doing a great job, right? And that's just peace of mind for people.
I think so. I think it's good to have a second set of eyes, though, because, especially if you've been with somebody that's a little bit older, right? And now our whole world has changed. How much has it changed for you that you've been doing this for 10 years, but in the last few years, our whole world has changed.
Sure.
The way we do things.
Yeah, so it's certainly, the pandemic kind of threw everything for a loop, right? And so I think that changed not necessarily how we do business, right? But maybe in the modality. So I do a lot of Zoom meetings or team meetings now with clients instead of necessarily needing to come into the office. I still do like to meet with people face to face because I think it's important.
Yeah.
But
that's the first one.
Yeah, but there's a lot more flexibility now in how we can kind of accommodate clients.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously in our industry, there's rules and regulations. They are always changing, right? The Department of Labor, the SEC, FINRA. And so we have to keep up to date with all of those changes and make sure that we're adjusting accordingly and staying in compliance.
Right. Are you a fiduciary?
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to say.
Yes.
It's important to be. I think a lot of people now are. It used to be that it wasn't. I don't know if it's required now or what.
Well, and that's kind of part of the whole new DOL rule too, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, a fiduciary, and that's where we've got to put your best interests first.
Right. Especially since we're trusting our money with you and where to put things and what to do with it, right?
Yeah.
So welcome back, everyone. At the break, we've been talking to Facebook land a little bit out there, and I always ask some questions at that time when I was asking a little bit about, for the tips and things like that, and what you've seen differently in the last few years of how to work with somebody today is so different than it was a few years ago. But also being a fiduciary and how important that is, if you want to talk a little bit about that too.
Yeah, so fiduciary is basically, the rule is that I am required to put your best interest first, right? And so making sure that when I'm presenting ideas or solutions for, it could be anything, right? It could be investments, it could be insurance, whatever it is, that I'm selecting things that are appropriate for you and that are going to fit your need and not necessarily take into consideration maybe the commissions or fees that the advisor would be paid.
Right, and today you want to make sure that you are working with somebody who is a fiduciary, very important, because of that one reason right there. You're entrusting your money with them, and you want to feel comfortable and that you know that you're doing. That's why those consultations, a free consultation, is so important. And to find out, what is it that you want? What are you looking to do? What are your goals? That's what you got to find out first. She's been doing this for 10 years. Her phone number is 480-656-6476. The website is modernstrategyinvestments.com. I also wanted to ask, you have one here, very good question. How does the financial planning look different for women? I want to know that right off the bat.
Yeah, actually, that's funny because I was having a conversation with someone the other day about needing to meet or something like that. And I was like, well, tell me a little bit more about what's going on. And, she was saying, she's like, life has just changed so much. I'm a caregiver for my mom, And so it tends to fall a little bit more on women, right? From career breaks, for example, because either we're taking care of small children or we're being a caregiver to a parent. And so how does that impact your Social Security or your retirement goal? But also we've got, the pay gap for gender. Women generally live longer than men, right? And so we need to make sure that the money that you have is going to last you.
Right.
And I think your family history and longevity is so important. Like I literally had a client turn 101 in February.
That's like common now. It's not uncommon anymore. It's great though.
But I know for, her kids that we need to plan longer than 90, right? And so making sure that we're making those adjustments in the financial plans. Because if we're not making those adjustments and we say, oh, well, you're good till 90, but now you live to 100, we've got 10 years.
That's a long time, and people are healthier today. They've got, your tickers are going much better because you've got a pacemaker in there or what have you. But we are living better. We're living different. We live healthier, and so we are. We don't want to outlive our money, though. That's the main thing, and that's where you come in. But I really love what you do is when you start with somebody, let's say you don't have to start at an older age, though. You can start any time. You're starting younger, obviously, what a wonderful thing to do for yourself, not just for anyone else, but for yourself. If you have children, also for sure, a legacy that you're leaving. But also for people, look at what could happen. You could be, in your senior years, and end up either as a divorced, right, or a widow, right? And all of a sudden now life changes, and now you're scrambling again. Don't do that. Let's be prepared.
Yeah, and that's always something that it's never an easy conversation when I'm doing the financial planning, but it is a conversation that we do have around what happens if someone passes away early, right? We always want, everybody wants their golden years, right? And to be with their significant other, and they want to go through that process together. However, there are things that come up, and you're finding it's more common now where you will get divorced later in life, or someone will pass away at, 55 or 60. And how does that impact your finances? Because did we take Social Security? Did we not? Are we able to claim their benefit? Should we claim ours? And so understanding all of those different things as well as your budget and your expenses to figure out, how do I need to navigate this now?
Right. And that's where consultation is huge. It's so important. You work with both men and women, or do you like to work with women only? How do you work with people?
So I work with a lot of women, but I work with both men and women.
Turns out, just because, women resonate with women for some reason, too.
I don't know how. It was just, I fell into it at one point in time. I had a bunch of ladies who were either widowed or divorced, and they, came to me, and so that's kind of how.
And you're a mom, you're a caretaker, so that's kind of what you're doing with your clients as well. I also want to talk about this. How does psychology affect financial decision making?
Oh, so it's funny because my job sometimes can be a marriage counselor, it can be a coach, it can be a cheerleader, right? Because money is emotional for people. And the idea is that when it's emotional, we will make sometimes irrational decisions. And so it's understanding around, are you a spender? Are you a saver? Right? Because that can impact things as well. And so when I sit down and I'm working with people, one of the most important things to understand is I'm not here to tell you not to go on that vacation or not to spend your money. Yeah, you want to live your life. You want to have a good time. But at the same time, understand that, did we really need to buy that on Amazon at 2 o'clock in the morning after a bottle of wine?
Yeah.
And so trying to take out some of the impulse spending to make sure that we're budgeting and thinking through our choices.
A word that came up this morning that I was talking to some people is accountability. Being accountable for yourself and trying to be a little bit more disciplined. And I think when you have that conversation with somebody who could sit down and show you where you are, because a lot of times you just put your heads in the sand, you don't really know. And you think you might want to know what you want or what your goals are, but if you can't get to them because you're not doing what you need to do, then that doesn't work either.
Well, and it's about creating achievable goals, right? Like I've had people come in and they're, making $55,000 a year and they're saving 10% into their 401k or whatever the case may be, but they want to retire and live on $100,000 a year. And it's like, okay, well, that's a pretty big gap there, right? So what are the things that we need to do to understand where we are and what's reasonable, what's achievable,
how
right?
You can get there. You may not get there right away, but the steps to it are pretty important.
And it's a long-term game, right? It's not instantaneous for people, and I think that's always a struggle too, because they want to see, we're used to having results at our fingertips now, but investing and financial planning is a long-term game.
Yeah, and I believe that financial planning is so important. It's not just about the market and investing at all. It's and certainly even when you're talking about insurance, and let's say we're going to talk about seniors for a moment that are all, and you can change every year to a different plan, but you know what? If you don't have the right person helping you and talking to you, you could be making mistakes and with your finances. It's not just about how much money can I save. It's also sitting down and talking to your financial advisor who can help you. Are we making that right decision by doing that one that you're going to take right now?
And what are the things we need to consider prior to making that change, right? Even with job changes, for example, when I have clients that might, have restricted stock or ISOs and things like that when they're getting ready to switch jobs, and it's like, okay, well, do you understand that you're going to lose that benefit and certain things?
I bet you a lot. I bet you that happens a lot, right? And then you've done something, you've made that decision to do it, and then guess what? Now it's too late,
correct,
right? The most common financial mistake that people make:
not contributing and not knowing their benefits. Really.
And not talking and having a conversation with a financial advisor or somebody who can help you with financial planning. I think that's where you come in, and that your strong suit is obviously with women, but certainly you work with both men and women.
Yeah, well, and I think for couples too, right? It's money is like the number one thing people fight about. And so having someone to kind of come in and say, okay, where are you guys at? It does start those conversations, and it does help people kind of get on the same page.
Yeah, and I think that's so important to be on the same page, because when you're not, and when you come in and you sit down, I think what's really neat is that they might not be on the same page at all, or thought they were, and then all of a sudden now they're
80% of the time.
Yeah.
Really, people
and
both have completely different visions.
Women wants to save, men wants to travel. What is it?
So, well, it's just, they'll have, one wants to retire at 60, one's going to work until 70, or one is thinking that they're going to travel and that they're going to live on X amount of dollars, while the other's thinking, no, we're only going to have, Social Security, let's just say. And so making sure that they really understand where they are and that get them on the same page for what it will look like.
Right, whether you are with someone or not, knowing where you are is so important to where you want to go and what you want to do and what your goals are. So to have a consultation, I think, is the first thing to do, and sit down and find out, so she can talk to you. Find out what you're doing that you may be doing just wrong, even if it's just with your insurance, right, or your 401k.
And, you may not be doing anything wrong, but you may not be aware of all of the benefits that are there and the best way to take advantage of them. And that's what we're here to do.
That phone number to call direct, it's 480-656-6476. She does free consultations. Her website is modernstrategyinvestments.com.